Hey everybody, welcome back to the Foundation series. This is session 7, Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 through 22. And you can see I've got that already on the screen here beside me. We're going to be studying today the calling and the mission of Noah. Now, we were introduced to Noah last time as we studied verses 1 through 8. Remember, verses 1 through 8 contain the history of the second age of men, that second dispensation, what was going on during that time. We're still in that second dispensation, but this is called now, beginning in verse 9, is called the generations of Noah. That is the title for the third age of men, or the third dispensation. But we're not quite there yet because we haven't had that final cataclysmic event which will end the second age. So let's just jump right in here and look at our outline. You'll notice that we begin in verse 9. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man. Now there's something that we're gonna want to mark that. He was just man and he walked with God. This phrase, Noah walked with God, is the same Hebrew word that we had describing Enoch. Enoch walked with God. That is, he caused himself to walk with God. So Noah must have learned this from him. He must have devoted himself completely to the service of the Lord, to walk with the Lord. And that's what we find here. Noah is walking with God. So he's a just man. He's causing himself to walk with the Lord. But remember, verse 8 said, Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. It wasn't because he was just or he walked with God. It was because of God's gracious choice in Noah. Now, Noah exhibits that grace through justice and through devotion. And he has 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And those boys will become very important later on as we study the second age and the third age. Notice verses 11 through 12. The earth was corrupt before the Lord. Now you're going to see several things here. Let's just mark these. The earth, we're going to see that, and it was corrupt. And then we're going to find this word, corrupt. We're going to find it there. It's also right here. So apparently, we're getting a message. And the message is the things have gone wrong. You remember in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, in the beginning the Lord created the heavens and the earth. And then at the end of that chapter, he declared everything to be very good. Okay? Well, here, it's not very good anymore. What happened? What's the difference between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 6:11 and 12? Because here the earth was corrupt. The earth was filled with violence. God looked upon the earth. Behold, it was corrupt. All flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. This is, and I'm just going to mark this here. We're going to put a little divider right here. This is the pollution of men. Now, I'm not talking about throwing garbage cans into the ocean, although that too is the pollution of men. But the true pollution of men is found right here in this verse. The earth is corrupt because men have corrupted it. Violence fills the earth. Corruption fills the earth. Flesh, all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. Remember what it said in the first 8 verses. It said that their thoughts were wicked continually. So the pollution of men describes the condition. We have Noah, and notice the contrast here. We have Noah and his generation. He's a just man and he walks with God. But he's doing it in a very corrupt time. Earth was corrupt, filled with violence. All flesh corrupted his way. God didn't mean for it to be this way. He didn't make it this way. But because of sin, because of Adam's sin, and now the transgressions that extend from that sin, all men had corrupted their way. And so the earth, all of it, all of creation now has been affected, which is why all of creation is going to be destroyed. Well, almost all. Let me put another break in here. Now we have what I'm going to call God's gracious work. It begins here in verse 13. It begins with Noah. And God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is before me. The earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Again, notice the earth is mentioned again here and is mentioned again right here. I will destroy them with the earth. So this is not good. Everything now that God has made, sin has tainted it. All right, so now we have several things here. We have Noah's work, his call. I'm just going to put that over here. And I'm going to highlight that, but I'm not going to center it because this is all a part of God's gracious work that he's doing in the life of Noah. So Noah's calling, make thee an ark of gopher wood. Rooms shalt thou make in the ark. Pitch it with pitch within and without. So we see now that there's something that's going to be created. This is what God wants Noah to do. He declares to him his revelation of judgment. It's coming. He gives Noah a calling. Make an ark. Tells him what to do in that ark. Make it with rooms. And you're going to seal it. He hasn't said anything about water yet, has he? Or has he? No, nothing about water. Notice now in verse 15. This is the fashion which you shall make of it. So now Noah is going to get the details of what he's to do. The length of the ark. So we have the ark has a size. The ark has a window. The ark has a door. The ark has decks. So there's a size to the ark, 300 cubits, 50 cubits, 30 cubits. It has a window, it has a door, it has a deck, it has rooms, it is pitched within and without. So the specifics of the calling. Now this is what Noah is to do. So Noah is given this particular instruction. I'm going to bring an end to all the earth, to all flesh. The earth is filled with violence. I will destroy them with the earth. So everything's going to be destroyed. God declares that before it ever happens. Now he has a man that he is called by grace to do a work. He gives him a calling, make an ark. He gives him the specifics of that calling, how to make that ark. Then God's work, Noah has his work, and God has his work. The problem we have sometimes is that we try to do God's work for him, don't we? He says, behold, I, even I, do bring a flood of waters upon the earth, to destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life from under heaven, and everything that is in the earth shall die. Now we get the flood. God's work is going to be, but it's not going to be just any flood. This is going to be a global flood. It's a global event that happens, and he's going to do it to destroy all flesh. But with thee I shall establish my covenant. Right? God's work is the flood. Noah's work is the ark. And then we have covenant. With thee I will establish my covenant. Thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons, thy wife, thy sons' wives, with thee. Now, he had not made a covenant with any man up until this point. He had made a covenant with all of men in chapter 1, but now we have a certain man who is in a specific generation who is trying to do God's work. God says, I'm going to make a covenant with you, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons and thy wife and thy sons' wives with thee. And everything of all flesh, 2 of every sort shalt thou bring into the ark. Noah's covenant, 2 of every sort shalt thou bring, to keep them alive. This is a very, very important idea here, to keep them alive. We see it mentioned twice, to keep them alive, because, it's not their fault that everything has failed. It's just not. And so they're being judged too. Thou shalt take unto thee of all the food that is eaten, and thou shalt gather it to thee, and it shall be food for thee and food for them. Thus did Noah according to all that God commanded him, so did he. Now that's a lot of work. The pollution of men has filled the earth. God's gracious work is, number one, he reveals. When there's a revelation of coming judgment, what do you think should happen? Shouldn't we be declaring the coming judgment so that everyone is aware and warned? Well, that's, I'm sure, what it's what Noah did, because we're told by Peter that he was preaching during this whole time. So he's warning the folks. So we have the revelation of coming judgment, Noah's calling, make an ark, the specifics of the calling, God's work. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring a flood upon the earth to destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life from under heaven, and everything that is in the earth shall die. So that's the warning. That's God's work. He not only now warns about the coming judgment, but he tells us what kind of judgment it is and what's going to happen. Then we have the covenant, Noah's covenant. He's going to save him alive. The creature's covenant of every living thing of all flesh, two of every sort, to keep them alive, male and female, fowl, cattle, creeping thing, every sort, shall come into thee to keep them alive. So God is going to do a work for all the land-breathing animals and the fowl of the air. He's going to keep them alive so that there's something that can now take its place. God doesn't want to completely destroy it. He's going to bring it to renewal. And then God's gracious work in caring for the ark inmates with food, all food that is eaten. So he makes sure that Noah and his boys gather this food up. You're going to gather it to you. It shall be food for thee and for them. Who's the them? That's the animals, right? So everybody in the ark has to eat. You're going to gather the food. They're going to eat. Thus did Noah, according to the all commanded him. Because, why did this happen? Why did verse 22 happen here in this story? It happened because of verse 9. Noah was just, perfect, walked with God. And because of that, he did according to everything that God told him to do. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed today's study. The outline will be available online. You can grab it and pull it down as a PDF. Join me again next time. We'll look at chapter 7. Talk to you soon. Bye.